Welcome back to episode 29 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Story. Today, I was joined by Stuart Carter, who is the founder of stuartcarter.co, and he has had a pretty cool background. He has been able to scale businesses to multiple seven figures, partnered with founders, and essentially gives his flywheel, he gives his formula as to how you could scale and grow your coaching business to 20K monthly recurring revenue. So about 250 grand per year. He gives us really good insight because he has such a vast array of business experience. So if you're a business enthusiast who is just starting out their business, or someone who wants to get to the 250 grand yearly revenue mark, or even pushing further, then I'm sure you'll find some great snippets. He reflects on guys such as Jim Rohn, Alex Hormozy, Russell Brunson, how he's used them as an inspiration. He talks about The Richest Man in Babylon being one of his top 3 books, a book which I actually haven't read, so I'm really excited and intrigued to go give that a whirl. Guys, thank you for tuning in again. I love you all. Your engagement means a lot. If you enjoy this podcast, please like it, share it. It helps a lot, and it just gives the message, shares the message out to loads of other people.
As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Story, and the Grappling Growth podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy.
Stuart, morning. How's it?
Hey, Joe. Yeah, all good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. So, first question, as always, is what does growth look like to you?
So growth in terms of an online business, obviously that I'm kind of in that space, is getting people to know about you and about what you're offering. So I do a lot of things on sort of service based. Growth would be getting people to know who you are, know about you, know about your services, your products. And then the scalability of, if it's a business, the scalability of that business. So, that could be using different channels. That could be, growing your team, growing processes within your business, so that you can get to whatever point you effectively want to get to. So in a business sense, that would be what growth would mean to me, is letting people find you and then figuring how you can grow to wherever you want to go to.
And I guess more philosophically and to a personal point, what would that look like to you?
Yes, so growth within like me as a person, I think I've always definitely been a lifelong learner. Growth and self-development has been something I've been interested in for, probably 25 years. Kind of starting off listening to people like Jim Rohn. Growth and self-development is paramount. I think when you are thinking of doing something yourself, whether that's not necessarily business, but if you've got goals in life, whether that's family goals, whether that's sporting achievements, whether that is business, I think just really thinking about what it is you need to do to achieve those, and as I say, growth and self-development being extremely important to allow any of that to happen. So any goals that you have in life, you need to figure out how you can be the best within yourself to be able to achieve that.
And you mentioned Jim Rohn is one of the first people that you gravitated towards by the sounds of things. What about Jim Rohn, and what would you say has probably been some of the biggest lessons you've learned from him?
Yeah, so he was one of the very first people that I started to listen to, and a lot of lessons that I kind of found from him. I like the way he kind of discusses seasons of life, and I think it was definitely one of the kind of big talks that he always had. I think it really helps to understand that there is kind of fluctuations and seasons of life. So it can't all be mass growth and success all the time. You kind of need to understand that there's usually going to be a period of a sort of downtime after that. So it's just making sure that you're kind of preparing yourself for anything like that happening, while you're having good success. Obviously, the old saying, make hay while the sun shines, I think is super important, and one of those lessons that really kind of got me is to make sure that while you're having successes, that you're thinking about what might come next. And I think what made me gravitate towards his kind of teachings was kind of him himself, and I think his initial story, like why he started to look into self-development and things. I think it's probably relatable to a lot of people, kind of finding himself in a position where he was almost basically embarrassed that he didn't have the money that he hoped he would have. He was always kind of struggling at the end of the month, and he knew the only way to change that was not to try and change his environment or his situations, but actually to change himself. And like self-development was the only kind of way to do that. So I think it's a very relatable way, because a lot of people, I think, find themselves in that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's so true. I think a lot of people, especially younger people, they think that everything is 100% put your foot on the pedal and go. And what I've realized, and probably something you can attest to, but I try to use August, the month we're in right now, as a bit of a reorientation. And before, I always thought you can just consistently go, but sometimes you need to pull away, not give as much, to then anchor yourself, to then go harder. And I think burnout is so paramount in today's society, as it probably has always been. Whereas you can't consistently just drive a car in sixth gear because
No.
the clutch is going to go. You need to be tactical when you're going around a bend and drop down into gears. So I guess for you as an entrepreneur, and maybe some good context for people, you've scaled businesses to multiple seven figures. You've worked there. How do you think you've adapted your seasons within business and life over, say, the last few years?
Doing exactly that, as you say, kind of taking times, slow times. And I think August, as you say yourself there, I was only talking to a student about this the other day, actually. It's, August is usually a very slow time, across the board. So I think, to have, periods of downtime and kind of more focus, it's definitely how I've done it. And, my business partners in the past have done it. We would have sort of sale times during the year, and the kind of lull before that sale time was where we would kind of focus the business. So we used a system called Traction, which is a book by Gene Whitman, and it's an operating system for businesses, basically. So you would do like quarterly, we would run a sale every quarter, but before the sale and the kind of, as you say, driving in sixth gear was going to happen, we would always have that kind of focus time before we kind of got into that grind. And I've kind of always done that throughout the kind of entrepreneurial journey, is make sure that you've got a period of time where you kind of get the team in. You're talking about what's going to happen next. You kind of plan out that grind time, over however many weeks or a month or so that's going to happen. And really kind of get your ducks in a row. So I think that is super important to know when those periods of grind are going to be, as much as you can, like throughout your business, and then use the time before that to really kind of get focused and get granular on what you actually want to achieve during that grind time. So I think that's personally how I found it really helpful. As I say, quarterly, using Traction, we would do kind of quarterly meetings and set the expectation for the quarter, and then kind of set deadlines and time expectations of what we were going to be doing, sort of ramping up to that. And as I say, I've kind of carried that through the whole entrepreneurial journey, to have that focus time and then have the grind time.
So when you're working within teams, and even just working maybe as a solo entrepreneur, how would you keep yourself accountable and the team accountable to actually hitting these quarterly goals? Because I know myself, and I know with people who I coach, if we set 5 goals at once, we're probably going to miss one, and that's okay. But it's about having those stretch goals and targets.
Yeah, exactly. So what we used to do with the team at my previous company is we would we would use that time, as I said just a minute ago, to kind of set the expectations. And I think it's really important as well, like not to necessarily extend the deadlines or anything. Like if you've got a focus that you have to get done, it's like you still plan to go towards that deadline. So it's, I think you can fall into that trap sometimes of just continuing to extend deadlines. It's like, oh, we haven't quite hit that yet, but it's not quite understanding why you haven't hit it. So I think, certainly having KPIs, like I am a big data person. So analytics I absolutely love analytics. So it's one of those things, like having a KPI score sheet was very, very important. Through those businesses, and now through my journey as well, is making sure that you're kind of looking at what it is you want to achieve, what the expectations of those KPI metrics are going to be, and making sure that they're important metrics as well. So I think it's not necessarily how many followers you've got on social media or how many likes you've got, but obviously things like traffic from whatever sources, but then obviously revenue goals and things as well. So as I say, we would have a sale every quarter, so we knew what we wanted to achieve revenue wise for those sales. So it's just really keeping yourself accountable and making sure that you have the right metrics that you're going to follow. And as I say, having the deadlines of when you're going to kind of have everything set up that you can move into, or what we were doing anyway with those sales is, you would move into the sale knowing again that you had everything lined up. You'd met all the deadlines up to that, to make sure that all landing pages, sales pages, videos, ads, and all the rest of it were ready, so that you could then move into that sale and obviously hopefully hit the home run kind of thing.
I'm curious, so your approach with quarterly sales, do you ever think it was arbitrary to the business and it would devalue any products or services that you were selling by doing quarterly sales?
No, because we had evergreen sales going on as well. So I think it was very good to kind of bring people in on the sort of front end with a lower ticket item, and then the sales would be more about a kind of bigger commitment. So it would be like a lifetime access to programs, those kind of, or higher ticket items. We used to run retreats and things like that, so we would have a slight discount on things during sale time. So no, I don't think it devalued anything. I think we had a very good approach to the kind of carousel of onboarding people and onboarding new customers. So as I say, the sale items were more about an opportunity at that point in time to come on board for a bigger commitment. So I think it just sort of helped to get people on a little bit more longer term.
Makes sense. And so as a coach, and I love talking to coaches, what would you say is one of the biggest just own goals, mistakes that people who are just starting an online business are making right now?
I would say trying to do too much. I think there's so many opportunities out there, and one of the biggest things that I'm certainly seeing right at this moment is there's a lot of professionals that you can see doing very well, all promoting different ways to do things. So as a new entrepreneur, it always lends itself, unfortunately, to that kind of chasing the new opportunity. And I was on a coaching call yesterday with one of my students. And I said exactly the same. And I said it's something that you need to find what you want to focus on, because essentially everything works. So if you give it enough focus, you give it enough commitment, and you give it enough time, any way can work. So you've got people promoting, it could be like VSL funnels, video sales letter funnels, it could be webinars, it could be workshops, it could be doing everything through social media and DMs. And you see all of these different approaches, and one of them is always going to look slightly quicker, or it's going to earn you more money. So I think as a new entrepreneur, it's trying to focus yourself, or making sure that you are focused, because it can be so easy to kind of chase after all these different things when you're following so many different people. But I think it's important to understand that actually all of it will work, because you can see, as I say, from following X number of people, if you follow 10 people, or 10 influencers, professionals, whatever you want to call them, all of them are having success, and all of them are doing it in slightly different ways. So it's not about jumping over to every different platform or every different opportunity, but really kind of finding one that you want to focus on and giving it enough time to actually work, rather than thinking, oh, well, I've done this for 2 weeks, it hasn't worked. I'm not earning £10,000, dollars, whatever a month. Therefore, it might, it must not be the opportunity for me. There must be a different opportunity. So then obviously you jump to a different opportunity, and you find the same thing. So if you give it enough focus and enough time, all of it works. So just find that one thing.
In your opinion, why do you think people struggle to commit to doing one thing for an extended period of time?
I think it just is because they see a new shiny object, and I think it's people seem to be, well, when I say people, I mean like professionals and things online. They're always kind of reducing the time period, so it's like, oh yeah, you can do this in 30 days, you can do this in 7 days. So people obviously automatically think, oh wow, that's the thing. And I see it all the time now. It's they used to be kind of 90-day programs, then they went to 30-day programs. Now there's people saying that you can build an online course in 7 days using AI and things like that. And it's like, it kind of doesn't work that way, because there's so much more in the background. You might be able to get an ebook or something up in 7 days. Of course, you can create a funnel in 7 days, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have traffic coming into that funnel. It doesn't mean you're going to have the attention of the audience that you want. So it's unfortunate there's those kinds of things, that it's almost giving you misinformation, because it can't actually be done in that kind of time. Well, it can be done, but it might not be successful in 7 days or 30 days. So it's kind of finding the things that actually are going to be beneficial long term. So sorry, back to your point was sorry, what was the original question? I think I've gone on a tangent there. So.
I said, why do you think people struggle to actually achieve their goals, and why do you not achieve their goals? Why do they strain from doing one thing consistently?
Yeah, I think it's because of that, because there is so many options, and they presume that the next thing is going to be their opportunity. Whereas if they give anything enough time, as I say, it's going to be successful anyway. All of those offers, and that they will all work eventually, but they just need to give it enough time.
Have you heard of a concept called the plateau of latent potential?
No.
So it essentially looks at what you just said there, but essentially suggests that people will do something to the point where just round the corner where you can't see, that's where the results are. So it's sort of the 80-20 rule. They'll do 80% of the work, and the last 20% is where the results come through. But because they can't see what they're doing, all of the work, the foundation they're laying, they quit just before their plateau. And that's where most people drop off. And I remember coming across the concept quite a few years ago, and I remembered looking at people who I was in communities with and thinking, you probably won't be here in a year's time, because I think a lot of people quit just before. You've probably seen the photo online of there's one guy who's digging for gold.
Yeah.
Just turns back just as he's about to hit it.
Yeah.
But can't see what's in front of him. And I think there's a bit of blissful ignorance of just saying, I'm going to do something for as long to the point where either I quit or I'm successful. And I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs are quite delusional in this case, where they would continue to just chip away because they've just got this belief that they'll be successful. I'm intrigued. Are there any influencers right now, or do you have a top 3 influencers who you really religiously follow? I mean, Jim Rohn, you mentioned. Are there any other people out there who you love consuming their content? You really think what they talk about is valuable?
Yeah, I think Alex Hormozy, obviously comes up very often. I think across the board. I think just Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, what he's done, what he's achieved, and just his general approach. I think the fact that watching his last launch for, I think it's $100 million leads, just done an absolute masterstroke. I think, marketing masterstroke in terms of, built up the launch of that book, with the webinar. Obviously had tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people on there, went all the way through the whole webinar launch and then started to do the stack and close and just dropped the whole free thing. And it was almost like a mind blowing moment of like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's just delivered, $15,000 worth of information, and he's just dropping it for free on his website. It was like, there would have been people lined up to spend, again, thousands of dollars to have bought that, that product. But I think he's an absolute, master in what he does. And the other one that immediately comes to mind is Russell Brunson, who I believe Alex learned a lot from anyway. I think the founder of ClickFunnels. Been a big fan of Brunson for a long, long time. Going back to the days when he was at like Traffic and Conversion, with Ryan Dice. Before ClickFunnels blew up. But I think he's absolutely phenomenal as well in what he does. And I heard a thing the other day actually with Myron Golden saying, that he was probably the best marketer of the 21st century, and I would 100% agree. I think the guy's an absolute genius. So those two, the two that immediately come to mind.
Yeah, I've got a load of Russell Brunson's secrets there, the expert traffic funnel.com secrets, and they were really pivotal for me in just learning the basics of continuity models and how to build ascension funnels and how to drop sell people and cross sell people and drop sell. Drop sell, I don't even know if that's a term. Drop sell, actually, there we go. But all of these sell terms, and I think I do really believe that he put pretty much the roadmap and the dictionary out there for a lot of online marketing. And I think, in my view, Alex Hormozi has made it. I think his delivery is very different to Russell Brunson. You can tell Brunson is a lot more family orientated. He shows more behind the scenes stuff of what it's like to run a company with a headquarters. And intriguingly, I was on a coaching call just before this, and the guy who I was talking to, he said he was listening to Alex Hormozi was just on Chris Williamson's Modern Wisdom podcast, which I think is a phenomenal podcast. And I think this is his third time on. But he was saying, I don't actually align with Alex Hormozi. He wasn't discrediting what he's done as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
But I see his perspective of Alex Hormozi seems very atypical. And it's a case of, for me, I think he's paying a big cost for success. And hopefully one day, him and Layla, that they have children together or they achieve whatever they want to do personally there. But it does seem as though he doesn't really have a great balance on life. But then he says, I'm living the life I've always wanted to live. So that works for him.
Sure.
When you were engineering your businesses, what do you think your life, or how do you think you wanted to engineer your businesses to facilitate your life?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the point I'm exactly at now, because, I was very fortunate in the businesses that I was in before. They were online businesses. It was myself and the founder. We did grow to obviously a bigger team. But what I found from that, it was the first time in my life, really, in my working life, that I actually had a flexible schedule. So working online, working remotely, still working, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, but it was very flexible, so I could work in the evenings, I could work early mornings. So it didn't matter that I didn't have to be at my desk 9 to 5. I've got, 2 kids, here, obviously my wife, we've got a dog. So there's a lot of things going on. So it's really important for me now as I build my business that it's built around my family. And I think going back to what you were just saying about Alex Hormozi in particular, I think it can be difficult for a lot of people to see a family oriented side, because there are, quite a few of those kind of gurus, if that's what they're classed as now, online, that are about, the 16-hour day, the grind, and going for it, and, full belt. But that's kind of where I'm taking my business now, in terms of trying to help, dads kind of come out of that 9 to 5, because, as I say, I've been blessed by having a much more flexible schedule working online. And I've got an elder son as well, and I've got a nephew's kind of just in his 30s, and they're hardworking guys. They have families, and they're finding that 9 to 5 a real struggle now. So they're looking to start online businesses and things. So, as I say, that's where I'm kind of taking my business, and my approach is around kind of having family oriented businesses. So not having that strict kind of structured 9 to 5, because I think people are much more involved in their family life now. They're much more, they see so many more opportunities kind of outside, whether that's travel, or whether that's as I say, a flexible schedule, just kind of being able to work at the times that are convenient for them and their families. I don't think people want to shirk responsibility or get away from work. It's just that they don't want to be kind of penned into that 9 to 5, or having to travel to to work. Like I've worked in London, or wife's worked in London, and when you've got a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 6 job, and then you're traveling an hour and a half or whatever every day, backwards and forwards, I think that kind of working structure just doesn't work anymore, for people that have families. So in terms of how I'm structuring my business now, it's very much towards a more flexible schedule, and a family oriented business.
I think not only is there a significant opportunity cost to people, there's a massive strain on, if you look at more intangibles, happiness and life satisfaction, whereby famously in London, there's the 5K commuters club, which people who are spending over £5,000 per year on traveling to and from work. And I remember a friend who lived out in Kent. He'd leave his house at, I think, 6:30 in the morning, get back at 8 o'clock. And I just think there's just, you sacrifice so much of things to stimulate your life. And don't get me wrong, I think at times there's seasons, as you spoke about, whereby you need to put your head down, and maybe that's really good for a guy who's just come out of university, or a guy up until the age of maybe 27, 28, and all their focus is just money and building assets. But equally, I think, depending on what you're driven by, if everything is extrinsically motivated, then that's only going to get you so far. And I think there's a lot of young men who I can see who start to change their psyche and their psychodynamics away from being extrinsically motivated to intrinsically motivated, and that's what really propels them. So I've got a question for you. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Oh, wow. I'm a big believer in trusting your instincts, and not having regrets. So I think that would be definitely something that I would say to my 20-year-old self is use your instincts, use your gut feel, but then don't have regrets. So if you feel something's right, go for it, but then don't look back and, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because I think you kind of have to take the shot every time. So I think it's quite simple and short, but I think that would be it. Is trust your gut, and don't have regrets.
We can't split test life, so that's one thing that I think a lot of people, they look back on, and they think they would rather do something differently, but you go back and you do something differently, and you end up on the other side of the world, and you're in a better position than you are now, and just being a bit grateful with regards to that. So we spoke about Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozi. What were your top 3 book recommendations? And you cannot say $100 million offers or any of the books.
You may have had it on here before, but Think and Grow Rich, I think, by Napoleon Hill. A fantastic book, and I think a success book that a lot of people come up against and get to learn, which is great. That one would definitely be a top recommendation. I don't know if it's classed as a business book, but The Richest Man in Babylon is again another fantastic one that I've read a couple of times and bought for people in my family and things, and friends before, because I think it's just such a good learning tool for obviously for finance. So yeah, kind of understanding what you should be doing with your finances. So yeah, Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon. And then I'm actually on at the moment the Dent Business Accelerator. So with Daniel Priestley, and his book Key Person of Influence, I think is another one. And yeah, I've got oversubscribed, and the Entrepreneur Revolution. I think all of his books are really, really good. So yeah, he's a great guy as well to kind of follow. And would be another one that I would say, alongside Russell Brunson and Alex Hormozy, as people to really like focus on and follow. And I think the good thing with him, again, he's in that, if you are a family person, I think again he's got a family, so he kind of relates some of the things that he's able to do, kind of alongside, helping and supporting his family. So, but yeah, Key Person of Influence, I think, is another great one. But there's amazing business books coming out all the time. I think it's so good. Recently come across How to 10 Million by William Brown. Again, that one's a really good one if you're looking to start a course, an online education business. It's one that breaks down kind of all the ways of being able to do that. So that, again, that's another really good one.
So did you say you're in Dan Priestley's program right now?
Yeah, so in Key Person of Influence Accelerator.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
How long have you been part of it for?
Since April. So yeah, I was in the April intake. And yeah, they give out such good information. Yeah, they're Glenn Carlson and Mike Reed are the other two guys involved in that. And yeah, you've got such a supportive community as well of entrepreneurs that are obviously on the same journey. So it's nice to be able to connect with them on the calls. You see them in the community groups and things as well. So it's great to have those connections and have that network of entrepreneurs on the same journey. And as I say, getting real sort of strong structure of how you can kind of manage your business, and as I say, the approach of getting more attention and more attraction. So obviously we spoke about attraction marketing earlier, and I think that is the very kind of beginning of the Key Person of Influence is about setting yourself as the Key Person of Influence, setting yourself as the go-to guy in whatever niche that you're, or girl as well, sorry, but the person inside that niche who is the go-to person. So I think it's a brilliant accelerator.
There we go. Well, hopefully Dan gives you a kickback when this podcast they join the program. I've looked into it and it looks really, really good. And I think, as you're talking about his literature, content that he puts out, and I imagine that his podcast, he was on Diary of the CEO earlier this year, that really amplified his messaging. And I think he gives such sound business advice. So absolute credit and kudos to him. I'm intrigued. Have you had a moment in business, and I imagine a lot of us have, where you just thought, I'm done here?
Not in recent times. I have in the past, when I've had businesses in the past. It's kind of got to that point where it's just like, okay, enough's enough. So I actually had a personal training studio. So I was a personal trainer for a long time. But I had my own studio at one point. And it really did get to that point where it was just like, I'd had it for around 2 years, and it was just a struggle all the time. And it was obviously brick and mortar. So, it wasn't the same as doing online things where you can just continually, kind of go at it. There was, it was back in the days of, like leaflet dropping and all that kind of thing, going door to door, or obviously being in the studio, kind of trying to sell personal training time. That was a rough one. Thankfully, since I've come onto the online side of things, I haven't had that. I think it's, for me personally, there's always something new and enjoyable. I think, as we were talking earlier about, kind of always improving yourself, self-development and looking at areas where you might not be as good. I think there's so much in the online space that you can sort of focus on becoming better in a certain area. So it's never quite got to that point where I've just thought, no, yeah, because I know there's something else that I can improve on.
What made the personal training business such a struggle? And what years was this?
Wow. So that must have been 2000, 2007, 2006, 2007. So, but yeah, I think it was just a mixture of things, very early on in, a business career. I'd always kind of worked for people. And when I was doing personal training before that, I was working in gyms. So you had a little bit more of a kind of comfort blanket. Whereas going into my own studio, obviously I was then responsible for everything, whether I had a client come through the door or not. So that was, I think, the big difference in terms of being completely sort of on my own, in terms of you had to bring the money in, but as I say, you constantly had a lot of outgoings, even before a client stepped through the door. So I think that was the big thing. There was a lot more responsibilities.
Yeah, I think this is an issue that I've seen with people who start online businesses, is they try to bootstrap and not relay any money back into the business, and they have this kind of entitlement to get their business to 10, 20K per month. But the way how I see it, and I'd be intrigued to see if you agree with this approach or not, but I see the money that you spend for advertising as the replacement for the rent that you pay to have a brick and mortar business.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there definitely has to be an investment. I think the only way that I would slightly disagree with that, I think, is ad spend and spend that you have an outlay. It's almost like a little bit of a choice, because I think with online things, you do have a free opportunity in terms of organic growth. Whereas I think with a brick and mortar, as you say, it's regardless, as soon as you open that business, you have outgoings, you have overheads. Whereas I think with the online stuff, there's always going to be outgoings. Obviously, you have to have software, you have to have, if you're hosting a website, or I use ClickFunnels, going back to Brunson's stuff, you obviously have to pay for ClickFunnels, you have to pay for Kajabi, or whatever platform you're on. But you can limit that. So I would say that's probably the biggest difference there, is that you have the opportunity to do organic, with online. You could go just the route of doing social media and trying to sell people in the DMs. It's again an option, an opportunity, but I think I'm a bit more probably old-fashioned in terms of I like to have a hub, either a sales funnel or a landing page or a website. So
I see what you mean. So we have a section on the podcast where we get a question from a fellow entrepreneur. A fellow entrepreneur asked, how do you go about starting and scaling an online coaching business, getting it to 20K MRR?
Okay. So the initial part is getting attention. I think attention and eyeballs is the only way you're ever going to grow anything. Whether that is a coaching business or any kind of online business. So what I'm doing with my coaching clients at the moment, to essentially help them do exactly that, is to identify exactly who they want to work with. I think the one of the biggest points is always knowing your audience, knowing exactly who it is that you're trying to speak to, purely because it kind of guides everything. I think obviously you have to have a message that's going to land, and you need that to land with someone. You have to be able to relate with someone in particular. So I think finding your ideal client, and then doing everything you can to get in front of exactly that person. So whether that's obviously doing content, putting out content that is is touching on their biggest problems. So again, going back to the initial audience, you need to know who it is that you want to serve, because you need to know what problems it is that you're going to solve, and in what way. So because that would be very different for different people. So if you were going to do a boxing program, for example, your approach would be very different to a 40-year-old executive office worker that wants to do it for a bit of fitness, or a 20-year-old single mum who wants to learn boxing for self-defense. Like, there's a very kind of different approach there. So knowing your audience, doing everything you can to get in front of them. So Facebook groups, content. If you've got the money to do ads, obviously you can drop ads to the relevant audience as well. And then just creating valuable content, in terms of a course or an ebook or anything, again, you can get in the hands of those people. It could be a physical book. Again, going back to Daniel Priestley's teachings, they very much look at the kind of physical book side of things, of getting yourself in front of the right person. Those would be the core things. So the method that I tend to use actually is identifying the audience and the key customer, then creating the content, creating the ads, creating basically whatever it is that's going to get you in front of them. Then I move on to promote, so making sure that you're promoting out into the right areas. So that might be promoting on social media, that might be promoting by ads, might be promoting by physical dropping, if you're doing something locally, it could be physical drops as well. And then I go to convert. So that's basically obviously having the right things in place to convert, not only converting sales, but also converting from strangers into a viewer, viewers to followers, followers to buyers, that kind of thing. So every step of that is a conversion, and then after that would be scale. So whether that's learning the processes and automating it if that's possible, or learning the processes, building a team, and moving those processes into new team members. So those are the kind of 5 steps that I tend to use, as I say, as identify, create, promote, convert, and scale. So that's really what I take my students through at the moment. And that scalability is obviously then to move to 20k and onwards, really, in recurring revenue, because that's at that point then where you can get your first kind of customers through the door, on either a low ticket or if you're going straight to high ticket, but then kind of replicating all of those steps that you've taken to push people, or to push your business higher.
Nice, very formulatic there. So process driven. And I liked how, I think just before this call, you spoke about not so much a funnel, but a flywheel. And I'm a big advocate of a flywheel as opposed to a funnel, because I think a funnel is just more granular. A flywheel is just consistently working in and amongst itself. And I don't know how most of your business comes through, but I think if you have a strong flywheel, a lot of it happens automatically. And as well, it compounds as time goes on, is what I found.
100%. Yeah, and I think that's the scale part of my method, really, is getting to the point where you've got all the processes kind of mapped out, and again, kind of going back to data as well, so that the data that you're collecting, that you're doing things as optimally as you possibly can. And I think that's really, once you've got a process in place and what things that you can tweak, to improve on the next thing, as I say, that's where that kind of scalability and the flywheel sort of comes in, because you're training out, or you're automating the processes that are obviously churning that. So I think that scale part is super important, I think, for any business. You don't just want to go flat. So
there you go, Stuart. Thank you. That was insightful. As a fellow marketeer and business owner, there were the things that I could pick from there. So there's a lot. Excellent. Where can people find you?
So I have 2 places they can find me. So stuartcarter.co is my kind of personal brand. So that's helping people get initially set up with online courses and online businesses. And then for people that are already in business, I have a marketing company called 3SD Marketing, so 3sdmarketing.com. On all of the social channels, they're exactly the same. So at the Stuart Carter for the personal brand, and at the 3SD Marketing for the marketing brand. So that's where I can be found. And yeah, just really trying to help people get to where they want to go. As I say, whether they're just getting started or whether they're already in business and looking to improve.
Stuart, thank you.
Been a pleasure, Joe. Thank you very much.